I'm really glad you're here with me today, because we're diving into something that all of us deal with at some point in our lives: anger. Let me start by sharing something personal. A few months ago, I had a long and difficult day. I was tired, behind on work, and hungry. Not a great combination, right? Then, out of nowhere, a friend called me and started complaining about something I had forgotten to do. I could feel my heart beating faster. My voice got louder. I said something I didn't mean, and immediately I regretted it. Has that ever happened to you? You're not a bad person, but in that moment, you just snap. That's what anger can do. It sneaks up on you when you're least expecting it. Anger is a universal emotion. It doesn't matter where you're from, how old you are, or what language you speak. Everyone feels angry sometimes, but even though it's normal, many of us were never really taught how to deal with it. Some people try to hide their anger and keep it deep inside. Others express it in ways that hurt relationships, at work or at home. And the truth is, anger isn't always bad. Sometimes it's a sign that something important isn't working in our lives. Sometimes it's the beginning of change, but we have to learn how to understand it, how to manage it, and even how to grow through it. In today's episode, we're not here to judge ourselves for feeling angry. Instead, we're here to explore it, calmly and honestly. We'll talk about what anger really is, why we feel it, what it costs us when we ignore it, and how we can begin to handle it in healthy and respectful ways. This isn't just about avoiding conflict. It's about becoming more aware of who we are and how we react, so we can live with more peace, more control, and better communication with others. So, as we begin, I want to ask you a question. You don't have to answer out loud, just think about it quietly. When was the last time you felt angry? What triggered it? And more importantly, how did you respond? If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably someone who wants to improve, not just your English, but also your mindset and your emotional intelligence. And that's something to be proud of. Learning how to manage anger isn't easy, but it's one of the most valuable skills we can develop in life. So take a breath, get comfortable, and let's walk through this topic together. By the end of this episode, you'll not only have learned some great English phrases and expressions, you'll also have some new tools to better understand yourself. Ready? Let's get started. What is anger, really? So now that we've opened the door to this topic, let's take a step further and ask a simple but powerful question. What is anger, really? It might sound like an easy thing to answer. We all know what it feels like to be angry. Your body gets tense, your voice may rise, your heart beats faster. But even though the feeling is familiar, we often don't stop to really understand it. At its core, anger is a normal emotional response. It usually shows up when something feels wrong, unfair, or threatening. Maybe someone lied to you. Maybe someone didn't respect your time. Maybe you failed at something you worked hard for. In those moments, your brain sees a kind of danger. Not always physical, but emotional. And it reacts. That reaction is anger. It's your mind's way of saying, something's not okay. Pay attention. Now, just like happiness or sadness, anger is not a bad thing in itself. It's an emotion. And emotions are natural. They help us understand our world and our needs. The problem isn't feeling angry. The problem is what we do with that anger. Some people explode and hurt others. Some keep it inside until they feel sick or depressed. Some try to pretend it's not there. But none of these responses really help in the long term. Did you know that there are actually different types of anger? It doesn't always look the same. Sometimes It's like a fire, quick and hot. You get angry suddenly, maybe yell or cry, and then it passes just as fast. That's what we call short bursts of anger. They usually happen in situations that surprise us, like being cut off in traffic or hearing something offensive. This kind of anger can feel intense, but doesn't always last long. Other times, anger is quiet, but it stays with you for days, weeks, or even months. You don't shout or scream, but you carry the feeling inside like a heavy bag. This kind of anger is called resentment. It often builds slowly, maybe because someone kept treating you badly, or because you never said how you truly felt. Resentment can be dangerous because it changes the way we think and act, even if we don't notice it. It's like a slow poison. It eats away at our peace. On a biological level, meaning inside your body, anger activates something called the fight or flight response. This is an ancient survival system in the brain. When your brain thinks there's danger, it prepares your body to either fight the problem or run away from it. Your muscles get tight. Your breathing changes. Your heart pumps faster. This reaction helped our ancestors survive real dangers, like wild animals. But today, most of our threats are emotional. Things like stress at work, disrespect in relationships, or fear of failure. The body reacts the same way, even if we're not in physical danger. That's why we sometimes feel out of control when we're angry. Our brain is sending emergency signals. And now, here's a question I want you to think about. Is anger always bad? At first, many people would say yes. It feels uncomfortable, it causes problems, it makes people argue. But if we look more deeply, anger also has a purpose. Sometimes, anger is a sign that we care. It can push us to speak up, to take action, to make changes. For example, if you feel angry when someone treats you unfairly, that anger might help you set a boundary or protect your self-respect. Anger can also shine a light on our deepest values, like justice, honesty, or kindness, when we see those values being ignored. But here's the key. Anger is not meant to control us. It's meant to guide us. Think of it like a warning light in your car. If the light comes on, it doesn't mean your car is broken forever. It just means something needs attention. If we ignore that light, things might get worse. But if we look at it, understand it, and fix the issue, we're in a better place. Anger works the same way. So today, I want to encourage you to change the way you see anger. Not as something bad or shameful, but as something human. We all feel it. What makes the difference is whether we use it as a tool or let it use us. In the next part of the episode, I will tell you what anger management really is. And then we'll look more closely at where anger comes from, what triggers it, what sets it off, and why the same thing that makes one person furious might not bother someone else at all. There's a lot to explore, and it's all connected to how we see the world and ourselves. For now, just take a moment to reflect. What does your anger usually look like? Do you explode quickly? Or do you hold it in and carry it silently? How does your body feel when you're angry? The more you understand your own patterns, the easier it becomes to take back control. You're doing great, not just in your English journey, but in your personal growth too. And remember, understanding anger is not about being perfect. It's about being aware, honest, and willing to grow. What is anger management? So, now let's look at something very important. Anger management. You've probably heard this term before. But what does it really mean? Anger management is not about never getting angry. That's impossible. and actually not healthy. Like we said earlier, anger is a natural emotion. It's part of being human. The real goal of anger management is to learn how to recognize your anger, understand it, and express it in a healthy way. It's about staying in control, not letting anger take over your actions, your words, or your life. Think of it like this. Anger is like fire. A small fire in the right place can be useful. It gives light and warmth. But if that fire grows too big, or if it's out of control, it can burn everything around it. Anger management helps you keep that fire at the right level. It helps you respond instead of react. It gives you the tools to stop and think before saying or doing something you might regret later. One of the first steps in anger management is noticing the signs. Everyone has physical signs when they start to get angry. Maybe your heart beats faster. Maybe your hands start to shake. Or your face gets hot. Your voice might get louder. If you can recognize those signs early, you can step back before the anger becomes too strong. You can take a deep breath or even walk away from the situation for a moment. Another part of managing anger is learning how to communicate better. Often, we get angry because we don't feel understood. But shouting or blaming others usually doesn't help. It only makes things worse. Instead, you can learn how to express what you feel and need in a calm, clear way. This is called assertive communication. It's not passive, and it's not aggressive. It's confident and respectful. For example, instead of saying, "You never listen to me," you could say, "I feel frustrated when I don't feel heard." This small change can make a big difference in how people respond. Anger management also includes learning how to solve problems instead of just focusing on the emotion. If something makes you angry again and again, ask yourself, what can I do about it? Sometimes you can change the situation. Other times, you may need to change how you think about it. This is where skills like stress management, positive thinking, and self-awareness become very helpful. Some people also use tools like journaling, meditation, or talking to a therapist to explore their anger more deeply. These methods help you understand where your anger really comes from. Maybe old experiences, past hurts, or limiting beliefs, and help you let go of the pain behind it. The more you understand yourself, the easier it becomes to manage your emotions. So, anger management is not just about staying calm. It's about growing emotionally, becoming stronger, and building better relationships. It's a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice. You might not get it right every time, but with time, awareness, and consistency, you'll start to notice positive changes in your reactions, in your communication, and in how you feel inside. The triggers. Why do we get angry? In the last part, we talked about what anger really is, how it's a normal emotional response, and how it can show up in different ways. But now, let's go a little deeper. Let's ask an important question. Why do we get angry in the first place? What are the real reasons behind it? The answer is not always simple. Sometimes, we think we're angry because of one thing, but when we look closer, we find that something else is going on underneath. One of the most common reasons people feel angry is stress. When we're tired, overworked, or feeling like we can't manage everything in our lives, small problems can feel much bigger. Imagine this. You've had a long day at work, your boss gave you more tasks than you can finish, you skipped lunch, and you're stuck in traffic. Then someone cuts in front of you without signaling. Boom! You explode. You yell, you hit the horn. Maybe you even say something you don't mean. But deep down, you're not just angry about the car. You're angry because you're overwhelmed. That car was just the last straw, the final thing that pushed you over the edge. Another common trigger is fear. This might surprise you, but many times anger hides fear underneath. For example, if someone you love is late coming home and they don't call, you might feel scared at first. But when they walk in the door, you don't say, "I was worried about you." You say, "Why didn't you call me?" That anger is covering up the fear. It's easier to be angry than to show we're scared. This happens more often than we think, especially in relationships. Insecurity is another big reason. When we don't feel confident in ourselves, we may react strongly to things that make us feel small, weak, or not good enough. If someone criticizes your work or makes fun of your accent, for example, you might feel angry right away. But the real feeling is insecurity. Maybe you're afraid you're not good enough. And that fear turns into frustration. That's why it's important to know what we believe about ourselves. When we don't feel strong inside, it's easy to get angry on the outside. Of course, there's also unfair treatment, or what we can call injustice. This one makes a lot of sense. When someone treats us badly, lies to us, or disrespects us, it's natural to feel angry. If you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do, or passed over for a job you deserved, you probably know what that kind of anger feels like. It burns. This type of anger often comes from a strong sense of right and wrong. And when people break those rules, we feel deeply upset. Let's not forget about setbacks, too. A setback is when something delays your progress or makes you feel like you're moving backward instead of forward. Maybe you studied hard for a test but failed. Or maybe you prepared well for a job interview but didn't get the job. In those moments, you might feel disappointed at first, but if the feeling grows, it often turns into anger. At the situation, at other people, or even at yourself. Setbacks create frustration, and frustration is a close friend of anger. Now here's something interesting. What triggers anger in one person might not affect someone else at all. This often comes from personal or cultural differences. For example, in some cultures, being interrupted while talking is seen as extremely rude. It can make people very angry. In other cultures, people interrupt each other all the time during conversation, and it's not a big deal. The same goes for body language, tone of voice, or even being late to a meeting. What one person finds disrespectful, another person might not even notice. Even inside the same culture, people have different life experiences. Maybe someone grew up in a home where they were often blamed unfairly. Now, as an adult, they may get angry very quickly when they feel blamed, even if it's not really happening. Another person might have been taught to always stay quiet, never express emotions, and so they keep their anger inside for a long time, until one day, it all comes out at once. Let me share a quick example that many of us can relate to. Imagine you're having a conversation with someone, and you're trying to explain your opinion. But before you can finish, they interrupt you. Not just once, but again and again. How do you feel? Annoyed? Disrespected? Angry? For some people, this situation can be a major trigger, especially if they already feel like their voice is not heard in other parts of life. That's why it's so important to understand your own triggers, the things that push your emotional buttons. So now, take a moment and ask yourself, what usually makes you angry? Is it when people don't listen to you? When things feel unfair? When you're under too much pressure? Is it connected to past experiences or your sense of identity? The more clearly you understand your triggers, the better you can respond when those moments happen. You can pause, take a breath, and choose how to react, instead of just exploding without thinking. This is the first step toward emotional strength and better communication. Remember, anger is not the enemy. But when we don't understand where it's coming from, it becomes harder to control. In the next part of the episode, we'll talk about healthy versus unhealthy anger. For now, just keep this in mind. Every emotion has a story, and behind your anger, there's always something more. Be curious, be kind to yourself, and keep learning. Healthy versus unhealthy anger. Let's take a moment now to talk about something really important. The difference between healthy and unhealthy anger. Yes, that's right. Not all anger is bad. Anger itself is a natural emotion, like sadness, joy, or fear. It can actually be helpful when we understand it and express it in a healthy way. The real problem is not the anger itself, it's what we do with it. So, what does healthy anger look like? Well, it's when we feel angry, but we choose how to respond. We don't explode. We don't hurt others. We express how we feel in a clear, respectful way. For example, saying something like, "I feel upset when I'm interrupted," or "I need a break right now, I'm getting frustrated." This kind of response helps others understand our boundaries without turning the situation into a big fight. On the other hand, unhealthy anger is when the emotion takes control of us. We might blow up, yell, say hurtful things, or even become aggressive. Or we might keep everything inside and pretend we're fine while feeling bitter for hours or days. In both cases, we aren't really managing the emotion. We're either letting it out in a harmful way or pushing it deep down until it becomes resentment. Sometimes, unhealthy anger is connected to deeper issues, like perfectionism or control problems. Maybe things didn't go exactly how we planned, and that makes us feel like we failed. Maybe someone acted in a way we didn't expect, and we feel disrespected. When we expect everything to be perfect or want to control every detail, it's easy to get irritated or angry over small things. Have you ever lost your cool over something minor, only to realize later that the real reason was stress or pressure building up? There are also people who react quickly, without thinking. This kind of impulsive behavior can make anger dangerous. One sharp word, one angry message, one big reaction can damage a friendship or relationship. That's why we often hear phrases like, "bite your tongue," which means stop yourself before saying something you'll regret. Or, "take a step back," which means give yourself space before responding. Another common idiom is cool off. This means to calm down before you talk or act. So, how do we keep our anger healthy? It's all about awareness and simple strategies. One of the first steps is to pause. When you feel that emotional heat, stop. Just breathe. Take a few slow, deep breaths. This gives your brain time to calm the physical response. The next step is to name the emotion. Ask yourself, what exactly am I feeling? Is it frustration, fear, embarrassment? Sometimes just naming the emotion helps to lower its power. Another useful technique is to imagine yourself from the outside. What would you say to a friend in this moment? Would you tell them to yell and break something? Or would you suggest they step away, cool off, and talk later? Often, we know how to guide others, but we forget to guide ourselves. In the end, healthy anger is not about staying silent or pretending to be okay. It's about being honest, respectful, and aware. You can be angry and still be kind. You can feel strong emotions and still make thoughtful choices. So, next time something gets under your skin, try to pause, breathe, name it, and choose a better way to respond. Because managing anger isn't about being perfect, it's about being in control of your reaction, not letting your reaction control you. In the next part of the episode, we'll talk about what happens when we don't manage our anger, the cost of losing control, and the effects it can have on our relationships, our work, and our health. But for now, just remember, anger doesn't have to control you. You can learn to control it, and that's a powerful thing. The cost of uncontrolled anger. We've talked about what anger is and what triggers it. Now, it's time to talk about what happens when we don't manage it well. Because let's be honest, we've all had moments when we blew up at someone. Maybe we lost our cool in a meeting, during an argument, or even while talking to someone we care about. At that moment, it can feel like the anger is in control, not us. And when anger controls our actions, it often leads to damage. Sometimes we can repair it, and sometimes, sadly, we can't. Let's start with relationships. Whether it's your partner, your family, your friends, or your coworkers. When anger is left unchecked, it creates distance. Imagine yelling at someone you love. The words come out fast, maybe even harsh. You say something you didn't truly mean, just because you were upset. And then comes the silence, that heavy feeling afterwards. Maybe they walk away. Maybe you walk away. And even if you apologize later, something has changed. Trust is like paper. Once it's crumpled, it's hard to make it smooth again. Here's a question to think about. Have you ever said something in anger that you later regretted? I know I have. Most people have. It's part of being human. But when it happens too often, people begin to feel unsafe around us. They start to avoid conversations. They stop sharing how they feel. They may even walk on eggshells, trying not to say the wrong thing that might get under your skin. In the long run, uncontrolled anger pushes people away. And the sad part is, sometimes all we really wanted was to feel heard or understood. It's not just personal relationships either. Anger can also hurt our careers. Think about a job interview or a team meeting. If you can't handle criticism or pressure without reacting emotionally, it creates a negative image. People may think you're too difficult to work with, or that you don't have emotional control. Losing your temper at work, shouting, slamming doors, or sending angry emails can ruin professional opportunities. Even if you're great at what you do, your attitude becomes a problem. And let's face it, nobody wants to work with someone who's always angry. Over time, this can lead to isolation. You might wonder why people keep their distance, or why promotions pass you by. The truth is, people remember how you made them feel, especially when those feelings were negative. And in the modern world, emotional intelligence is just as important as technical skills. Then, there's the physical cost. Yes, anger can actually affect your health. When you lose your cool often, your body is constantly going into fight or flight mode. Your heart beats faster, your muscles tense up, your blood pressure rises. Over time, this stress can cause serious problems like heart disease, headaches, trouble sleeping, and even a weak immune system. Anger doesn't just affect your mind, it stays in your body. It can leave you tired, tense, and even sick. Not only that, but anger can also lead to dangerous behavior. People sometimes drive recklessly, drink too much, or say and do things they wouldn't normally do, just because they're angry. And once those actions are out there, you can't take them back. A single angry moment can destroy a friendship, end a job, or even change your life. That's why it's so important to stop and think before reacting. A few deep breaths now can save you a lot of pain later. Let me share something personal. A few years ago, I had an argument with a close friend. I was frustrated, tired, and felt misunderstood. I didn't listen. I just responded with anger. I blew up over something small, and said things that hurt them. We didn't talk for months after that. And even though we later talked and forgave each other, our friendship was never quite the same. That experience taught me a big lesson. Sometimes controlling your anger means protecting something much more valuable, your connection with others. Now, I'm not saying you should never feel angry. That's not realistic. Anger is natural. But when it becomes our first reaction every time we feel hurt, stressed, or disrespected, it becomes dangerous. It controls us, instead of us controlling it. And that's when it causes real damage, not just to others, but to ourselves. The good news is, we can learn to manage anger. We can train ourselves to recognize the early signs, take a pause, and respond in better ways. It takes practice, of course, just like learning English. You don't get it perfect in one day. But with time and awareness, it becomes easier. So next time you feel that anger rising, ask yourself, is this really worth it? Will I still care tomorrow? Will my words build or break something important? Taking that moment to reflect could be the difference between losing control and growing stronger. Mindset shift. Anger as a messenger. So far, we've talked about the negative effects of uncontrolled anger, how it can hurt our relationships, our careers, and even our health. But now I want to introduce a different idea, something that might surprise you. What if I told you that anger isn't always the enemy? That instead of trying to hide it or push it away, we can actually learn something from it? You see, anger is not just noise or fire. It's also a message. It's a signal that something important is happening inside you. It might be a sign that a boundary has been crossed, that you feel disrespected, or that something in your life is not working the way it should. When we start to look at anger with self-awareness, we can begin to understand what it's trying to tell us. This idea is all about a mindset shift. Your mindset is the way you think about something, and changing your mindset can completely change how you deal with anger. Instead of thinking, I shouldn't feel this way, you can ask, why do I feel this way? That small change in thinking opens a door to emotional intelligence, the ability to understand and manage your own emotions, and also understand how others feel too. Think about a time when you got angry at someone for interrupting you, maybe during a conversation or a meeting. On the surface, it looks like a small problem, but if you stop and reflect, the anger might be telling you something deeper. Maybe you didn't feel respected, or maybe you've been feeling invisible in other parts of your life too. When you pay attention, anger helps you discover what really matters to you. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. In fact, anger can sometimes help us grow. Let's say you keep feeling angry at work because your time is not respected. People constantly give you more and more tasks without asking. If you never notice or say anything, that anger just builds. But if you listen to it, you might realize that it's time to set a boundary, to speak up, to protect your time and energy. In this way, anger becomes your teacher. It shows you where something needs to change. This idea is not new. In fact, it has deep roots in many cultures. In Buddhism, for example, anger is not seen as evil. It's seen as energy, powerful energy. And the goal is not to destroy it, but to understand it. The Buddha taught that emotions like anger can become pathways to awareness if we're willing to look closely. In Stoic philosophy, the ancient thinkers believed that anger comes from wanting things to be different than they are, and that by accepting what we cannot control, we can feel peace instead of rage. One quote I often think about is from the Stoic philosopher Seneca. He said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." That means, when you feel anger rising, pause. Take a breath. Listen to what your anger is trying to say. Don't just react, reflect. And that's really the key. Anger is not a bad emotion. It's a powerful one. But it becomes harmful only when we ignore it or let it explode. If we take the time to explore it with curiosity and honesty, we can turn anger into a tool for better communication, stronger relationships, and deeper understanding of ourselves. So next time you feel your anger rising, instead of pushing it down or letting it explode, try asking, "What is this emotion trying to tell me? What am I really feeling beneath the surface?" These questions can open the door to healing and to becoming a calmer, wiser version of yourself. In the next parts of the episode, we'll talk about how we can begin to manage anger in practical, healthy ways. We'll look at simple strategies you can use in daily life, tools that can help you stay calm, speak clearly, and protect your relationships, health, and peace of mind. Remember, you have the power to respond, not just react. Practical strategies to manage anger. Understanding your anger is a powerful first step. But now let's talk about something just as important: how to manage it when it shows up in real life. Because, let's be honest, even if we understand why we're angry, it doesn't always stop us from snapping at someone, raising our voice, or saying something we'll later regret. That's why having simple, practical strategies can make a huge difference. One of the most powerful tools, and also one of the simplest, is breathing. When we're angry, our body goes into something called fight or flight mode. Our heart beats faster, our muscles get tense, and our mind starts racing. But by slowing down our breath, we send a message to the brain. It's okay, I'm safe. You can try something called box breathing. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and hold again for 4 seconds. Just repeat that cycle a few times. It's amazing how quickly it can calm your nervous system. This is not just a relaxation trick. It's a real technique that many athletes, soldiers, and therapists use to stay calm under pressure. Another helpful strategy is the pause before react rule. It sounds simple, but it's not always easy. The idea is to create a short space, even just a few seconds, between the feeling and the reaction. So when someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of immediately honking and shouting, take a breath. Ask yourself, is this worth my peace? When your partner forgets something important, before jumping to anger, try to pause and ask, what's really going on here? That short pause gives your self-control a chance to speak before your emotions take over. Journaling is another technique that works wonders, especially for people who often experience long-lasting anger or stress. Writing things down helps you understand your patterns and see things more clearly. For example, you might start noticing that you always get angry after long meetings or when you skip meals. This kind of self-awareness can help you prepare in advance or change your habits. You don't have to write a full diary every day, just a few lines about what you felt, what happened, and what you wish you had done differently. Sometimes, the best choice is to walk away. And no, it doesn't mean you're weak. In fact, walking away can be a sign of strength. If you feel like you're about to blow up, it's completely okay to say, I need a few minutes to cool down, and step out. Go for a short walk. Get some fresh air. Give your body and mind a break. It's better to step away and return to the conversation later with a clearer head than to lose control in the moment. Let me share a quick story. A friend of mine who works in a high-stress office used to get angry at small things, a colleague interrupting her, a client being rude, even bad coffee in the break room. She started keeping a small notebook in her bag. Every time she felt herself getting upset, she wrote 1 or 2 lines. Just doing that helped her slow down, think, and often smile at how small the problem actually was. She told me, "It doesn't fix everything, but it gives me back my power. The power to choose how I respond." That's the kind of control we're aiming for. Not perfection, just progress. And that brings me to one of my favorite reminders when it comes to emotional growth. Progress, not perfection. You're not going to get it right every time. You might still lose your cool sometimes or say something you didn't mean. That's okay. What matters is that you're trying and learning. These strategies aren't magic. They take consistency, which means doing them again and again, even when you feel like nothing's changing. Over time, though, these small habits build emotional strength. Think of it like training a muscle. If you go to the gym one time, you won't become strong overnight. But if you go regularly, with small efforts each time, you'll get stronger. Managing anger is the same. Each time you pause instead of shouting, breathe instead of blaming, or reflect instead of reacting, you're training your emotional muscles. So, what's one technique you can try today? Maybe it's deep breathing during a stressful moment. Maybe it's writing a few thoughts in your journal tonight. Or maybe it's just noticing when you start to feel irritated and giving yourself permission to pause. Whatever it is, remember that the goal isn't to never feel anger again. It's to respond to it in a healthier, wiser way. Simple step-by-step technique to manage your anger. So, now, let's talk about a simple step-by-step way to manage your anger in daily life. You don't need to be a monk or a religious scholar to do this. These are things anyone can try, whether you're at home, at work, or walking down the street. Step 1 is awareness. This means recognizing that you're starting to get angry. Maybe your heart is beating faster. Maybe your face feels hot. Maybe you start raising your voice. The earlier you catch it, the easier it is to manage. Step 2 is to pause. This can be the hardest part, especially when emotions are strong. But even just taking one deep breath can help. You don't have to fix the problem right away. You just need to slow down. Like the teachings from Islam suggest, sit down, wash your face, or move away from the situation if you can. Step 3 is to name your feeling. This may sound simple, but it's powerful. Instead of saying, "I'm angry," try to be more specific. "I feel disrespected." "I feel frustrated." "I feel scared." Often, anger is covering another emotion, like hurt or sadness. Naming the real feeling gives you more control and understanding. Step 4 is reflection. Ask yourself, why am I angry right now? What happened before this? What am I really reacting to? These kinds of questions help you look under the surface. Is it about this one moment, or something bigger from your past or your stress levels? Step 5 is choice. This is where your power really is. Once you understand your anger, you can choose how to respond. Maybe it's speaking calmly. Maybe it's walking away. Maybe it's waiting until you've cooled down. You are not your anger. You are the one choosing how to deal with it. Step 6 is release. After you've managed the situation, let it go. Holding on to anger, especially in silence, can turn into bitterness. If possible, talk about it. Write it down, or pray, meditate, or take a walk. Letting go doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means giving yourself peace. Step 7 is practice. Like anything in life, managing anger takes practice. You won't get it right every time. That's okay. The goal is not perfection, it's progress. Every time you pause instead of shouting, Every time you breathe instead of reacting, you're growing. Managing anger is a journey. Religion, culture, and science all agree. When we control our anger, we create space for wisdom, connection, and peace. So, next time you feel that heat rising inside, remember, you're not weak for feeling angry, but you are strong if you can stop, breathe, and choose your response. In the next part of this episode, we'll explore how to repair the damage when anger has already hurt someone or something. Because let's face it, we all make mistakes. The good news is that healing is possible, and it often starts with just one honest conversation. What gets in the way? Now that we've talked about strategies to manage anger, you might be wondering, if the tools are so simple, why aren't we all using them? Why do we still lose our temper, shut down, or carry resentment for days? That's a really important question. And the truth is, managing anger isn't just about knowing how. It's also about understanding what gets in the way. One of the biggest internal challenges many people face is perfectionism. The belief that we always have to get things right, that mistakes are signs of weakness, or that feeling angry is somehow bad. If you've ever thought, I shouldn't feel this way, or why can't I stay calm like other people? You're not alone. Perfectionism can make us feel like we're failing every time we get upset. But the reality is, anger is a normal human emotion. Nobody gets it right all the time. Expecting yourself to be calm, cool, and collected 24/7 isn't realistic. And trying to be perfect can actually make anger worse. It builds pressure inside, and when that pressure becomes too much, it often comes out in ways we don't expect. Another common obstacle is self-doubt. Sometimes we feel like we don't have the right to speak up. Maybe we grew up in a home where expressing emotions was discouraged. Maybe we've been told, directly or indirectly, that being angry means we're difficult or too emotional. So instead of expressing anger in healthy ways, we push it down, pretend everything is okay, and try to stay quiet. But that anger doesn't disappear. It stays inside and often turns into stress, sadness, or even physical pain. Self-doubt makes us question our own emotions. Is this really important? Or maybe I'm overreacting. This constant questioning makes it harder to trust ourselves and harder to respond in healthy, confident ways. And then there's shame. That deep feeling that something is wrong with us because we feel angry. Shame doesn't just tell us that we did something bad. It tells us that we are bad. This can be especially strong if you've ever been punished for expressing your feelings or made fun of for showing emotion. Shame can lead us to hide, avoid conversations, or turn anger inward. Instead of working through it, we get stuck. We feel alone. And sometimes we even start to believe that we're not worth the effort of change. But anger doesn't only live inside us. Sometimes the problem comes from social or cultural pressures. In many cultures, anger is seen as something negative or even dangerous, especially for certain groups of people. For example, men might be taught that showing sadness is weak, so they express their pain through anger. On the other hand, women are often told that being angry is unattractive or too aggressive, so they learn to stay quiet, even when something feels unfair. Different cultures also have different expectations around expressing emotion. In some places, it's normal to raise your voice and show strong feelings. In others, people are expected to stay calm and polite no matter what. These messages shape how we respond to anger and how we feel about it in ourselves and others. All of these factors, perfectionism, self-doubt, shame, and cultural pressure, can create strong barriers between us and the emotional freedom we need to live fully and honestly. They make it harder to use those strategies we talked about earlier. Even if we want to pause, breathe, or walk away, sometimes something deeper holds us back. So here's a question to think about. What stops you from dealing with anger differently? Is it fear of being judged? Worry that you'll lose control? Maybe you've never had someone model healthy emotional habits for you. Maybe nobody ever told you it's okay to be angry, and that your feelings are valid. Whatever the reason, it's important to remember this. Learning to manage anger is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming aware. It's about being kind to yourself, even when you don't respond the way you wanted to. That's called self-compassion, the ability to treat yourself with the same care and patience you would give to a friend. When you make a mistake, pause and say, "It's okay. I'm learning. I can try again next time." This simple mindset can help break the cycle of shame and silence. Patience is key, too. Real change doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to unlearn old habits and build new ones. Some days you'll feel strong and clear. Other days, you might fall back into old patterns. That's normal. What matters is that you keep showing up, keep trying, and keep learning. So as we move forward in this journey together, I invite you to look at your own roadblocks, gently, honestly, and without blame. Remember, you're not broken. You're human. And the fact that you're even thinking about how to handle anger more wisely, that's already a sign of growth. So, as we come to the end of today's episode on anger management, let's take a moment to breathe and reflect. We've talked about a lot. We began with the simple truth that anger is a part of being human. It's not something to be ashamed of or afraid of. It's a natural emotion, just like joy, sadness, or fear. What really matters is how we choose to understand and respond to it. We explored what anger actually is, both the quick explosions and the slow-burning frustration that builds over time. We looked at the fight-or-flight response, that deep biological reaction that prepares us to defend ourselves. And we asked the big question, is anger always bad? The answer, as you've seen, is no. Anger can be a teacher, a signal, and even a form of protection. We also went deeper into the triggers, those everyday things that set us off. Stress, injustice, frustration, feeling ignored or misunderstood. We talked about how anger often hides other emotions like fear or sadness, and how culture and personal history shape what makes us feel angry. Then we faced the cost of unmanaged anger. We talked about how it can damage relationships, hurt our careers, and harm our health. Saying something in the heat of the moment, something you wish you could take back, is a feeling most people know too well. And that's why it's so important to stop, breathe, and respond instead of reacting. It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress, step by step. And speaking of progress, we reframed anger as a messenger. We looked at how a shift in mindset and growing our emotional intelligence can help us learn from our anger. It can point us toward what needs to change, maybe a boundary we need to set, or a truth we've been avoiding. We shared practical tools too: breathing techniques, journaling, walking away to cool down, and giving ourselves time before speaking. These strategies may seem small, but used with consistency, they can make a big difference over time. We also talked about the real blocks: perfectionism, self-doubt, and shame, as well as cultural or social messages that make it hard to speak up or stay calm. Learning to manage anger isn't just about the outside. It's also about healing what's inside. So here's my personal takeaway, and maybe it will help you too. For a long time, I believed that being angry meant I was failing. But over the years, I've learned that anger often shows up not because I'm weak, but because I care. I care about fairness. I care about being heard. I care about being respected. When I listen to that deeper message behind my anger, I can grow from it, instead of just reacting to it. Now I want to invite you to try something. After this episode, take 5 or 10 minutes to sit quietly. You don't need music. You don't need a journal. Just breathe and ask yourself, what does my anger usually try to tell me? Or, if you prefer, write about the last time you got really angry. What happened? What were you really feeling? What could you do differently next time? If that feels too big, just start with something small. Maybe today, the next time you feel annoyed, you try taking one deep breath before speaking. That's it. One breath, one pause, one step toward emotional clarity. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I know anger is not always an easy topic, but I hope this conversation helped you feel a little more understood and a little more in control. Remember, this is a journey. It's okay to take it one day at a time. Be patient with yourself and keep learning. That's how real change happens.